from the energizing power of togetherness to restorative moments of solitude, from the love we show each other to the joy of loving ourselves and our Blackness. It's apparent on screen that Black folks are joy, especially when we get together. You'll see this for yourself in the electric new documentary film, Summer of Soul. Making his directorial debut, Questlove takes us on a journey to the 1969 Harlem Cultural Festival, which was an experience nearly lost in history and time. My colleague, the journalist Pierre-Antoine Louis, hung out with Questlove in Harlem to find out more. Take it away, Pierre.
Thank you, Veronica. Hey, family. Once again, I'm Pierre-Antoine Louis, New York Times writer and Haji B podcast host. I'm so excited to be here in Harlem with the phenomenal Questlove as he introduces us to his debut film, the epitome of Black joy and music realness, Summer of Soul.
The revolution will not be televised, will not be televised, will not be televised, will not be televised. The revolution will be no rerun, brothers. The revolution will be live.
When did you find out about the festival?
Okay, so I inadvertently found out about the festival. I was in Japan 1997, and unbeknownst to me, I saw 2 minutes of the Sly and the Family Stone footage at like some really hip restaurant in Tokyo. You know, they were just playing like random soul artists all over their walls. And I remember seeing Sly and his sister Rose. They were doing a weird vaudeville-esque dance thing called the ham bone. You know, that's. I was like, Sly and the Family Stone's doing the ham bone? Okay. But I saw it without any context, and I only saw 2 minutes of it. So naturally, in my mind, I just thought, oh, this is like some European music festival. They must be in Switzerland or Montreux Jazz Festival or that sort of thing. Because I didn't see the faces at all. Like the camera was far away. And then 20 years later, in 2017, these two gentlemen, Robert Fylant and David Dinerstein, they approached me about this mythical, magical music festival that happened here in Mount Morris Park. And they said Stevie Wonder, Sly Stone, and Nina Simone, and B.B. King, and Gladys Knight and the Pips, and like all these names.
Yeah.
And they're like, over 300,000 people were witness to this, and there's no record of it anywhere. And, you know, I Google it and all this stuff, and I'm like, this didn't happen. So in my mind, I was a little skeptical, like, well, wait a minute, like, how, if this is the Black Woodstock, like, how come it's not up there in history? Like, because, you know, if it's on the internet, it's real, right? Like, that was sort of like my kind of position. And sure enough, man, they showed me this footage, and I was wow, I was taken aback because it was real and it was magical. The first thing they showed me was the Sly footage from another camera angle, and I realized, like, oh, this is in Harlem? Actual Harlem? And like, yes, this happened. And I was like, it was recorded and nobody was interested, not anybody. And unfortunately, that's the sad fact. And that was sort of the seed in my head, like, you know, is our history that disposable? Right. Is Black erasure that casual? Like, with just the casual throwing history away like that? So that to me made me more obsessed with getting to the bottom of this. Like, so I felt more like a private investigator of soul. Private investigator of soul.
Families, fathers, mothers, kids running around. I was one of those kids. Beautiful, beautiful women, beautiful men. It was like seeing royalty.
Especially when you think about the lineup. And I saw the lineup, I'm like, how did we not hear about this? And all you saw in the crowd was this joy, people just happy, and them just kind of needing this. Can you talk a bit about joy and the importance of that when it comes to gathering around music?
So here's the deal. It's probably best worded by one of our talking heads, one of the festival attendees. At the time, he was 17. And his name is Daryl Lewis. And Daryl's the father of Miles Marshall Lewis, great author, former journalist at Vibe. And, I grew up on Miles's articles in The Source and stuff. And Daryl put it plain, like we were trying to figure out the mystery ourselves. And he's like, you just got to understand where we were at the time. Martin Luther King had gotten assassinated.
Yep.
And the prime purpose for this concert was really just to keep Black people from even thinking about any civil unrest or riots in the streets. That was the only reason why. It was like, we gotta have something for them to do and keep them occupied and keep them happy. And once the summer was over, it was kind of like, all right, well, we're done. We're good. And you know what? Actually, what wound up sort of stealing the thunder of what this movie should have been is Soul Train. So Soul Train becomes the national paradigm shift that affects every Black person in America. And that's one of the first true examples of Black joy. That Soul Train actually wound up being the first true example of Black joy and Afrocentricity. And not by default, because Soul Train was a powerful component. And that changed my life. But I will say that there's a moment in Prince's autobiography that always stuck with me, where he talks about how seeing Woodstock at the age of 11 changed his life. It's 1970. He's 11 years old, and this is one of the rare bonding moments that he had with his father as a kid. And that was his come to Jesus moment, watching Woodstock on TV. So, not on TV, in the movie theaters. And, I often wonder, this movie could have or should have been that for me.
Right.
Luckily, I found a life in music, another way to that promise, that promised land. But, what about the millions of others that didn't have this film as a means to do that? And because Woodstock is way much more than just a concert. It became like a defining moment of a generation. And this could have been that for us. And, but this is powerful and potent enough to, I still feel, resonate and have ripple effect long after, 50 years after the fact. This is still that powerful.
I think it could still feel that way now,
Yeah.
Something I noticed in the film, just people walking here, people walking together, being around. How important do you think it is for Black people to just have that kind of space, just kind of be together and just be and just exist?
It's important, and the thing is that it seems such a casual, almost a trivial thing, like just to exist and have a space of joy, just to have a good hour, just to have a good day. And it seems like it's trivial, but we know that there are people I know that live hour to hour, day to day. And then, oftentimes Black people, a lot of us are living in fight or flight.
Yeah.
And when you're in fight or flight mode, that really doesn't allow room for growth, because you're only thinking about your next hour, your next paycheck. I lived a life like that. When I was a kid, to like one of the most dreadful sentences my parents could ever say to me was, Amir, you gotta go to the store and get more toilet paper. Amir, you gotta run to the store. And now suddenly, like, I become like, I gotta navigate the block and figure out which route to go,
Right.
how to avoid the school bully and all this other things. And, you know, just to get home unscathed was like a victory to me. And so, you know, and that's sort of like just a light childhood tale, but I mean, there are people that, again, a lot of us, 80% of us are living in fight or flight mode, which every day is a fight to the finish. And just to have a good day is an achievement. And so, yeah, I deem that highly, highly important, because you can't do the growth and you can't do the work until you're in a state of peace, and you won't feel a state of peace until you are relaxed and happy. And so, yeah, we need that a lot. Yeah, we do need that.
Can we even like measure the impact of Black culture to like society?
Measure the impact? You know, I feel like we are the real life human equivalent of, I believe his name is Shel Silverstein's The Giving Tree. You know, that book of a little boy that finds a tree that practically gives its entire limbs to him, you know, for everything, as in toys, houses, boats, and whatever. And then, you know, the boy's kind of selfish and taking from the tree and taking from the tree, and the tree's so selfless, giving and then giving and giving. And then at the end of the boy then becomes an 80-year-old man, and they chop the tree down, and the last part of the tree is the cane that the boy uses. Like, every part of that tree gets used to help the boy, and that's often us. Like, where we give and give and give and give and give and give and give, or most times we're taken from. And you rarely see, I mean, it could be content on social media, it could be fashion choices, it could be our slang, our music, even our science and our math from centuries ago. So, you know, I think I lived a life previously where I just thought that a lot of these things will come into fruition maybe in my 70s or 80s. I figured, like, okay, by 80, we'll see our first Black president, maybe, if we still have a country left. You know, like those things, that's what I thought. But now I'm realizing that we're probably living in maybe in a neo-reconstruction, if you will. So I'm witnessing that in my 50s, kind of a new beginning. And it's, you know, time will tell how we spent this particular period. So I knew that this is my, you know, my contribution to our new beginning.
Now, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to bring up some folks.
I was nervous. We were so excited about being there. We joined our hands and say prayers before we went on stage.
Gladys Knight!
Now, when I stepped on stage, I was totally taken aback, because I didn't expect a crowd like that.
And the Pimps!
I bet you're wondering how I do. Baby, that's playing to make me blue.
You know?
Ready to take a walk in the park?
Sure, absolutely.
Explore.
Get away
the
from these
day.
bugs.
I've been like this.